Okay, good afternoon. This is Jeris Miller, the Oculus Launchpad, along with my co-partner, Aaron Moffett, and Cindy Buchanan, who is the other co-producer of this Hangout. And we're going to have everybody introduce themselves. So we'll go ahead and start with April. You're the first person in our line. Give us your full name, where you can be reached if you want to be reached, and a brief 2-minute description of your project.
Sure. My name is April Arlington. I am in Atlanta, Georgia, via Los Angeles, and I can be found over probably on Twitter. I've been a little bit on a hiatus, but at April Arg on Twitter, and yeah, I'm working on a project that essentially it's storytelling in VR, kind of like a skip the room experience, but instead of escaping the room, you want to stay inside the room and figure out this mystery. So that's like the best. I have to work on my pitch, but you know, basically. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much. And Camille, would you like to introduce yourselves and where can you be reached, and what are you working on?
Yeah, so my name is Camille, and I'm currently working on, I'm kind of like tweaking it a little bit, but I'm from Florida, so a lot of with like Disney and stuff like that. But what I'm trying to work on is kind of like having the person to have their kind of perspective through different Disney princesses, because a lot of people love Disney princesses. So, but kind of like if you've ever been to Universal and kind of how you know with Harry Potter, if you had like the one that you can go to different areas and you would have an interactive, but it's not VR. Maybe kind of bringing that into like if they were able to go to certain parts of the park, that they would be able to have like that perspective of that Disney character at different locations.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. And we have Charity Everett has just joined us. So Charity, would you like to introduce yourself? You're working on 2 projects currently, one a HoloLens project and one an Oculus project. She's our overachiever of the bunch. So would you like to briefly describe what's happening with your Oculus project?
Okay, so my Oculus project is, it's a musical virtual reality project that's based off of a song from this group that I went to one of their concerts and I cornered them in the back and showed them some VR and then made them sign the rights to their song over to me. But the song is a breakup song, so I'm taking you on a visual journey of what a breakup feels like in a world made out of origami. So I'm going to have a series of sandbox environments that embody different stages of the breakup phase. And in those environments, you'll have the free reign to explore and interact as you like. But then you'll actually be moved through the different stages as the song progresses. So I'm kind of playing with the idea of moving the player through a narrative flow while at the same time giving them their own agency.
Nice.
And I'm physically making the origami and I'm 3D scanning it and putting it into the space.
Wow, that's intense. That's wonderful. Okay. Cindy Buchanan, would you like to please introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about your project?
Sure. Well, I'm Cindy Buchanan, and you all could find me, my website. I can type it in the group chat because it's rather hard to spell and remember. It's agilability.com, and my project that I'm working on is Smoky Mountain VR, and I've got a website set up for that, smokymountainvr.com. And so what I'm working on is I'm going up to the Smoky Mountains and capturing 360 video and 360 photography so that I can build it into an application, a VR application, so that people can, you know, people who can't get up to the Smokies can get up there and have of views, you know, and see all the wonderful sites that we have up there. So, and I'm wanting to build some more interactivity into it, but as of right now, it's just, you know, the video and photography. So.
Very good. Okay, so Polly, would you like to introduce yourself and where can you be reached, and tell us a little bit about your program that you're working on?
Okay. You can imagine my name is Polly Wong.
Conference room or even the kitchen.
Somebody has actually somebody has
volume is
on campus and others even on the building.
running.
How do you discriminate? And one possible answer is you could use Wi-Fi
Like a TV.
as a course reload.
Yeah. So does someone also have? There we go. Can everybody mute their microphones, please, except for Polly?
Use case also yours.
Okay, that's good. Go ahead, Polly.
Okay, cool. So my name is Polly Wong. I could be reached on Twitter, on Facebook, and email. It's polly@gmail.com. And then, so what I'm doing is I work in the interior design field, and I basically translate the 3D models and visualizations that we've always been doing in order to presentate our project into VR. And
so
applying that into the
hang on a second. We're still getting interference. There's somebody talking on the telephone in the background of somebody with somebody. Either mute your microphone. That'd be awesome. Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's basically it. Right now I'm testing out a lot of material, lighting, and in order to get it to be a very accurate and visually pleasing situation, which actually in my situation it doesn't really require a lot of code. I've chose to use Unreal Engine, and then that's been working out pretty cool. I am also in the process of planning on another project that's going to be built on Unity, and that's going to be applied for, it's an AR application that would eventually be used in the Meta 2 AR glasses.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be, the project itself is to allow people to basically excuse me, stage their homes or wherever they are, real estate professionals or whoever, to be able to find furniture pieces, whatever it is, 3D models, and place it in their space and be able to see that real time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super. Thank you very much. And Shayna, could you please unmute your microphone and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your project.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shayna Moor. Best way to get in contact with me is just to send a Facebook message because I respond to those pretty quickly. So I'm a game developer. I've been developing games for about 5 years, and my Launchpad project, unfortunately, right now is on hold because I've been this month a whole bunch, mostly. But I am a music visualizer.
Okay, Shayna, you're cutting in and out a little bit, so just to give you a heads up, why don't we go on to the next person? I think the next person who just joined was Amy. So, and then we'll see if your audio situation resolves. Why don't you try turning your audio off and on again to see if that's going to help it resolve. Thank you. So, Amy, if you'd like to please unmute your microphone, and let's see, and introduce yourself and tell us what you're working on. There you go. Okay, it looks like we're bogging down. Can anybody hear? Everybody hear me? We might have too many people on the chat.
I can hear you.
I could hear you.
Not hear Amy.
Okay, all right. I'm hearing Amy. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
I think she's muted.
Yeah, would you like to unmute yourself, please, Amy? Okay, I'm still not hearing her yet. Is she coming through for anybody else?
No.
Okay, my suspect is we've now have reached critical mass on the chat, which makes it a little challenging. Let's continue on. Let's go back to Shayna. Actually, Cheryl Spinoza was also on just a second ago, I saw. Shayna, would you like to unmute yourself and see if you have a better audio experience?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi.
Great, great. Okay, so
any interference or anything?
No, you sound good. All right. So since this is your ballywick, go ahead and talk to us about Unity and development tips.
Okay, so the first thing that I with Unity, everybody in the chat, is if you guys could give me, I just want to know, like, is anybody just completely new to Unity, doesn't really understand what it even is or what it's about? I mean, we had somebody from Unity come in and talk, so, but if anybody's like completely has no idea, just let me know because I can do a quick rundown.
Great. I think we have some basic information given the presentation from the Launchpad, so go ahead and just launch in.
Okay, so the really great thing about Unity is just how accessible it is. It takes about 5 minutes to install it and get it. It takes about 5 minutes to download it and get it installing on your machine. It can run on a lot of different machines. Doesn't require a ton of sophisticated hardware to run well. It's a great engine. And the other thing that's really nice about it is that Unity has tons and tons and tons of documentation on the internet, partially because of the efforts of Unity as well as the developers who've been using it. So pretty much if you have a question in regards to like scripting, that sort of thing, literally just Googling it can often get you the information that you need. Now Unity, there's the Pro version and the free version, and any of y'all who are listening, the free version is going to work fine for you unless you have some kind of big VC backing and you're making tons of money. You know, good for you, but for everybody else, the free version is definitely going to work. And if you're wondering sort of like what's missing in the free version compared to the Pro version, it's mostly a lot of like advanced networking stuff, advanced shader stuff, that kind of thing. And you know, if you're in sort of a fresh to beginner range with using it, that's not really gonna matter. So the important thing to know about Unity is that it is oriented. So there's like a type of thing in Unity development called a prefab, and a prefab is sort of it's like a bunch of different things in it, and basically what you end up doing when you're making a Unity project is you set up all these different prefabs and create scripts that are attached to them. And this can help a lot when you're trying to do sort of advanced things with like camera movement, that sort of thing. And so the language that you really want to know if you're going to be doing development in Unity is C#, because C# script you're putting in your project. Now I think we have a mixed video and interactive projects. So I will say that the majority of my experience, in fact all of my experience, has been working in games. So there's a lot more focus on mechanics and interaction when you're developing a game in Unity or any other thing, as opposed to like if you want to make some sort of interactive video 360-degree experience. For example, in a Unity game, we might be thinking about kind of keeping score or like enemy AI, that kind of thing. Whereas in a sort of 360 video type thing, your focus is probably going to be mostly on camera motion. And creating a camera controller in Unity is fairly simple. I highly recommend, there's tons of tutorials on Unity. Maybe tomorrow or a couple days from now I can post up some tutorials just on how to make a sort of a basic gimbal. And a gimbal is basically a 3D object that allows you to more realistically simulate head movement. And when you apply the VR headset camera to the gimbal, it controls in a way that is natural to that head movement, and it works really well. Maybe that's something I can do one of my videos about.
That would be great. We also had Cheryl Spinoza. I'm reading the chat channel. She mentioned that she's brand spanking new to Unity, so maybe some really good beginning tutorials would also be really useful for if you can take that as an action item while you're posting links.
Yeah, Cheryl, I highly, highly recommend that you check out that C# programming for VR Udemy class that I've kind of talked about in the past. It is, you know, super, super basic, early Unity C# scripting tutorial. I cannot stress enough how great this class has been. I'm now about halfway through it. You know, the people putting together the videos, super, super professional, teach in a really accessible way. Worth checking out. It's a really, really good way to sort of learn, be able to go at your own pace, review information that you don't understand or if you have trouble with. Like, there are a couple different games that you end up making, and one of the exercises I did that was I went back and tried to, tried to recreate the project without going through the step-by-step thing that the instructor did, and that did a lot to help my understanding.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's really helpful information. Thank you.
What tool set do you develop in? Is it within Unity, or do you use an external IDE?
I'm sorry, you're not coming in super clear.
Which tool set do you develop in? Are you using Unity's internal editor or an external IDE?
I am using Unity primarily, and then using Visual Studio to script in C#.
Okay.
I've worked with some external plugins before. There's one for like lighting that's called Colors, but it's spelled weird. But Unity just by itself is really robust, especially so. Coming at this Launchpad from a game developer's perspective, when you're developing games, and this is something that one of my mentors, Warren Spector, who's the original creator of Deus Ex, he really stressed a lot in his discussions with my cohort that you want your project to have a sort of creative core. You want to have pillars to the project you're creating, and you want to have, you know, one or two things about your project that are the center of it. That is the one unique selling point that is really what you're. And I see the submission period in August as a sort of similar situation where, when you're thinking about your projects, you want to think about what is the one thing that I want to convey with this demo, with this proof of concept that I'm going to be showing to Oculus. For example, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on names, but we talked about the project to show the beauty of these mountains. And I think that feeling of, wow, look how beautiful this all is, and how the VR element enhances it, that is like the core of your project. So you want to kind of direct everything towards that. It's really, really important. It's just like, you know, when you wrote essays in college, you wanted to have like a really strong thesis. You want to have a really strong idea that your game is pointing towards. And that's my game developer inspirational talk for the evening. But getting back to Unity, we sort of discussed it last time, and I've been thinking about it a lot. And I think a great idea, especially for the 3D video folks in the group, to consider doing with your sort of story-focused projects is, instead of worrying about getting your game looking super duper pretty, worrying that, I'm sorry, I said game. I'm probably going to say game more because I'm just super game focused. Your project, I wouldn't worry about making it super polished. I think we've had a lot of discussion about, should I use this camera? Should I use that camera? This camera's too expensive. And that is not so much important unless the core of your project is about that visual clarity. It's about saying, look at how beautiful what we've made is. And then, okay, you want to kind of consider that. But if you're making something that is, say, more narrative focused, you don't necessarily have to have, professional level art assets. You don't have to, get an artist on your team who can make you that high quality stuff, because that's either going to cost a lot of money, or you're going to end up like cheating an artist, and you shouldn't do that because the art mafia will find you. That level of fidelity is not crucial to the core. Like, for example, I had a sort of a production consulting conversation with Dale, who is working on like a anti-bullying project. He's trying to sort of show the emotional experience of what it feels like to sort of be different and be bullied, and sort of try to train kids who are in that situation, like how to recognize it and how to react. And I kind of had the same conversation with him, like, what is the most important thing about your project? What are you trying to convey? And what we got to was, he really wants to show this like emotional experience. And so what I recommended to him, and what I recommend now, is just try to get sort of a gray boxed environment and characters into your project. Gray boxing is sort of a game level design thing where you literally build up your environment and your characters with basically rectangles. And what it does is it gives a sense of the scale of what you're making, and it gives a sense of where things are going to be and the volume of them, and the space they're occupying. But it requires significantly less investment in terms of time and talent and money, to be frank. So if you're going to do something like that, where you're saying, look at this space that we're going to be moving through in our project, I'd recommend getting that, sort of laying it out in a very rough way, and then worry about graphical fidelity later.
Yeah.
You want to have that plan in place.
Just for those of us who are filmmakers, there's a number of filmmakers on this particular hangout as well. There is a VR storyboarding prototype project that I actually posted over Shifting Point of View, which is the group that I work with. I'll put the Shifting Point of View group in the chat channel if you want to jump over there. I did find it and posted in that group. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Yeah, and that's great, and because I'm a producer, I can't stress enough how important it is to like have every single little tiny thing planned out, almost to the point of like neurosis. Just because I cannot impart to you just like how many things like this kind of interactive project. I've worked on like dozens of games now, and it's always the best thing about making creative things is how it's always different, and the worst part of it is that it's always different and crazy and new things pop up, which is why it's so great that we have this community. Does anybody have any like
questions? Yeah.
Specific questions about working with Unity? Because I can kind of go on with like technical details, but I feel like if I could kind of speak to specific issues, maybe I could sort of direct you towards where you could get the information that you need.
And you might need to unmute to speak, so please feel free to do that.
Right.
Actually, it looks like, Carol, it looks like you were speaking. If you'd like to unmute and ask your question.
Hang on.
Okay.
Well,
wax on poetically.
Also down kind of. Yeah, I mean,
Sorry, it's not.
Because I was thinking about. I really don't have any experience at all working with the sort of video side of this. I've been pretty much all games for like the last 5 or 6 years. Yeah. But I was thinking about some like principles of game design and examples of games that I thought might sort of be helpful for the folks who are doing that kind of video project. What is sort of the room's experience with games?
Actually, if folks are not able to speak for some reason, if you want to post your questions in the chat channel,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, then I can go ahead and read them to Shayna at least. So.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Could I? Sorry, it was just locked there for some reason. I have a question because a part of an experience I'm developing is really heavily. And I just have to say, you really helped me out from the last Google Hangout talking about building a gray box and that sort of thing. That's really freed me up because I, was lost in that not being able to make it quite as visual as before. So I just really want to thank you and everyone for the Google Hangout. That really has helped me a lot. So
I'm so glad to hear that.
It's so true. I'm just very grateful and excited again, and. So part of my experience I'm going to have convey is going to be carried a lot in this involving audioscape. And so I guess my question, and I do have some help with it, but without designing primarily for an evolving audioscape, is there any just advice you have going in or observations? I mean, it's going to have visuals as well, but the primary experience will be led through the audio experience because that's going to be the whole. It will be the point of emotional story will be told that way. If that makes sense. So I don't know if that. Do you have any ideas or hints, perhaps?
Yeah, and so something that I can tell you about the game development experience is that unfortunately, audio is sort of the last thing implemented, which is really a shame because I come from a family of musicians. I'm like the least musical person in my family, and I'm a classically trained soprano, so it's like big music nerds. And the good thing is that there are tons and tons and tons of communities on the internet for people who really care about game audio. There's a lot of stuff on Reddit. Our game, so I have a terrible reputation, which is not entirely unearned, but a lot of the really cool, like creative subreddits are really great. Our game dev, just GAMEDEV, often has audio creators engaging in really interesting conversations about developing audio for games. So that's a resource that I would look at. Yeah, it's not something I have a ton of experience in, but I really think it's fantastic that you're going in that direction because I'm trying to make a audio-focused project myself, so I think that the 3D audio experience is really important. Yeah, I don't have like a ton of really specific stuff, but I know that there are so many passionate musicians out there, and they really have a voice now on the internet. So I think sort of pursuing those communities would be a really good idea for you.
Thank you. I'll do that. That's great.
And one game that I can think of that sort of utilizes that really well, there's a game called The Unfinished Swan.
Oh.
And I think it's a PlayStation exclusive, but you can find like videos of it online.
Oh, cool.
And it's all about kind of you're in this big white world and you can throw little blobs of paint to reveal the world.
Oh, cool, yeah.
But it revolves a really fantastic game. Another one that uses audio really well is Journey, which is honestly like one of the best of art to come out in the last 10 years. So I highly recommend you check that out. It won several, uses it really fantastically. So those are two that I would check out.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to mute myself.
Great, thank you. The other questions that I wanted to leave at the end, we've still got 15 minutes to continue with our Unities discussion. And then I thought we'd take about 10 minutes to talk to folks. Has anybody created content, actually got it into the Gear VR space, and actually experienced their prototype creations within Gear VR? I want to kind of get a temperature check on how people are doing with that piece of the process as well.
I'll just say I have not put my stuff in Gear VR just yet. I do have an Oculus Rift that I've been testing what I've been building in Unity on, and so that's been my testing platform right now, and Google Cardboard. So no Gear VR just yet. I'm a bit behind on that.
Yeah. That's no problem. I'm actually focusing on that pathway because that is a pathway that the 360 Fly uses. So I've been kind of hitting that pathway, developmental pathway, pretty hard. Just wanted to get a sense if anybody else is posting 360 video, has tried to do 360 photography through their gear, through their Samsungs. And you know, kind of also do a temperature check on how people are doing with that.
Well, as far as the 360 video goes, I have been uploading it directly to my phone and you know, doing my 360 videos, you know, through the Oculus Video and Oculus Photos, but not actually, you know, my app that I'm building.
Gotcha. Okay, great. I just wanted to do a temperature check on that. Well, let's go back to talking to Unity since that's the focus of this particular session, but I did want to kind of get a sense of where people were with that, with the, actually utilizing the Gear VR, since that's the mobile pathway was kind of the pathway we were initially set on. So I thought I'd ask about it.
I was going to say I've seen quite a few people posting like Facebook, and it's always really fun to see those. I actually tried playing around with the Minecraft VR game last week, and that was a really, if you want to get yourself kind of acquainted with how these apps feel, I'd recommend that one. Just because it's more simple graphics and it might be a little bit less jarring if you're not super used to movement in a VR space. But one other thing that I wanted to mention about Unity is something interesting that it has these things called scenes. And scenes, it's not in terms of like a timeline like you would think kind of in the film world. It's more like you're able to put different together in one little packet, and then you can have like multiples of those within your project. So if you think about like a really simple game on like an iPhone, like I don't know, like Flappy Bird or something like that, you know, you could have one scene that is the actual gameplay, and then one scene which is the main menu intro, and then one scene which is like the end credit. It takes a little bit how it all works, but once you kind of get it, it is very, very useful to development, to making more product. And then there are that I would recommend if you're trying to do something with 3D video. There is Dear Esther, and also like, you know, variety for their visuals. They both have very stylized art.
Okay, cutting in and out, Shayna. So could you also
They
put
also work that they told.
in the chat channel as well, so we've got so we can get links to those resources? That's awesome. That would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. So,
did I resolve that audio issue?
Yeah, it's just kind of fading in and out a bit. It may be capturing at the server level. We don't know, but at least I have got a pretty strong connection, and it's kind of fading in and out here. So, just as a risk.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will try to get together some stuff and post it either tonight or tomorrow. I recommend checking out.
That's fantastic. Really cool. So do anybody else have any specific issues as far as how are you all doing going through your process? I guess that's my question.
Shayna, I have a question about I guess transitions, and what I mean by transitions is like when you open your app. I want to build like an opening transition scene where it has like my logo and things like that, and in between clicking on the menu button and between the time that you click on the menu button and the video loads, I want to have like a load scene. How do you recommend going about building load scenes?
So here's where I'm going to pull up class. I mean, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's a problem that's been solved, and I'll include like a tutorial about that when I post my links. But sort of a brief overview. What you kind of end up doing is putting planes in front of your main like 3D geometry, and then you have a separate 2D camera that is looking at those planes. And then it takes some scripting to sort of get the different buttons working. But yeah, it's like I don't want to say it's easy, but it is a little bit, it's simple, and I think you'll definitely be able to do it.
Nice.
Thank you much.
Yeah. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Folks want to jump in with any other? We've got about 10 minutes remaining on this session. Concerns?
So I have a question. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I apologize for my camera being off. I was having dinner and I'm nowhere camera ready. So I just want to put that out there. My question, you mentioned the Facebook group Shifting POV.
Yes.
What was that for again? Was that for samples of 360 video or tutorials?
Basically, I started it a while ago, and it was specific to filmmakers, artists, immersive artists, content developers. It is less game oriented because there's already tons of stuff for games out there. But this kind of aggregated more for filmmakers and content developers of immersive environments. So that's what I aggregate on Shifting point of view.
Okay, and I don't know if it's helpful to anyone, but a group of us in LA had like a 360 camera test last weekend, and I believe it's posted so everyone can have a look at it.
That would be great. Is it in the Oculus Launchpad or where?
Yes, I believe Aleem and Anna Maria posted it in the Launchpad closed group.
Okay, great. So that's great information for me. Can it be shared at all or not? That is just for our Oculus people?
I'm not certain how it's set up, but definitely for everyone in the Oculus boot pad.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if I could. Well, maybe you could touch with the folks that were involved with that test, and if you can, repost it over to Shifting POV if it's open.
If it's possible, okay, I will look into that.
Great, thanks so much.
Quick question was, I know someone talked about like Udemy. I think where I'm coming, like my biggest problem is like I know how to program, but Unity is still so new to me. Is there any other like resources that you like recommend in terms of like maybe tutorials or not for just to learn, I guess, Unity in general?
Yeah, like I mentioned, it has a ton of documentation. So if you look at the Unity website, it has a link at the top bar that says like developers, and then they have like a really extensive forum system as well as their own documentation, which includes tutorials.
Nice.
So the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, and also YouTube. Like, yeah, YouTube has a ton of content too. I can't stress, like, developing games is very much a process of like figuring out what you want to do and then like Googling how to do all of it. Unless you're working in.
Have you come across any gotchas in release across platforms with Unity?
I don't have any. Well, so I personally have not, but I did work on a game that we developed for iPad, and that particular process of pushing to iPad was not entirely seamless. There were also in Launchpad. She released, and then I think on iOS, and she had, I think it took like a full month to get her app onto iOS. So I don't know for sure, but I know that it's not quite as seamless as Unity likes to portray it.
Got it. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, that's hard to avoid with iOS, I think.
Another thing was like I don't know if this is like really like a major like concern, but I know from other things in the past with like for Unity, like unless for the when you have the Pro one, I know like versus like just the free one, I know sometimes depending on what project you're working on and like how much I guess money for that particular project that they have, there's certain like they force you to go to the Pro one. Like I don't. Does anyone like have any like know more about that, or if my question is clear for that?
Yes, you're talking about functionality, and as you access greater and greater functionality, it will force you into a professional path. It will say that that you have now exceeded the free version path, and where the cutoff is for Unity. That's a great question.
So the way that it works is I kind of get the train of thought that you're having. Mm-hmm. The way that it works is when you have the free version of Unity, those pro version features are just not available to you at all.
Right.
And so you literally just can't use them, and if you wanted to use them, you would have to upgrade to Pro. But once again, like I don't think that there's anything in the Pro realm that is going to trip you up too much. Okay. But officially with Unity, like I want to say the cutoff is if you have a company that has an annual income of greater than $100,000 a year, I think that's what it is. So not a lot to worry about right now. Now, in the future, if your game was to be picked up by Oculus or you're getting funding from them, that might change, but then presumably you'd have funding from Oculus, so it wouldn't really be a problem. Personally, I have never really heard of that being a problem for anyone that I know that's worked on Unity. It's very clear the delineation between the free version and the Pro version. So I don't think that will be something that'll trip you up.
Okay, thank you. Just making sure.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're going to be winding. in just a few minutes, so we're just going to take the last couple questions.
I have a question, but it's a little more complicated because it's about storytelling. So, Shayna, so I know that your background is in games, and so I've recently watched this YouTube video that was posted on the Facebook forum feed or whatever, and I think it was, yeah, and then anyway, it was this guy, what was his name? Robin, Rob Morgan. He was like, okay, I'm writing here. He's a writer for the first Wonder Book titles. I think they were like based on like the Harry Potter kind of like holodeck-like experience or whatever. I don't remember. The video is posted. I'll try to repost it here on the chat, the link for it. But anyway, so I remember from the video that he was talking about, you know, the importance of his background in immersive theater and how that's really like helping him figure out how to you know, kind of like create a universe so that the, you know, the audience doesn't feel like an audience, but it feels like they're being interactive with the universe. The whole thing about experience something like as a screen, for example, where you just, you kind of participate a little bit, but not really, unlike in games when you want to be, I don't know, Indiana Jones, or you want to be the protagonist, right? And here, I mean, how do you make the transitions where, I mean, you really want to be yourself, involved in this universe? And I'm just thinking, okay, how big does this universe, have to, be for it to work? Can you, like, work on a, like, smaller scale type of situation, and how you translate that for, in the capabilities of VR? Like, he was very enthusiastic in that video in particular, and it was very, very cool. But I'm just thinking, like, logistically, like, practically for, like, a project like this, the ones that we're trying to develop, yeah, like, how do,
So I think it goes back to what I was talking about like having a thesis and having an emotional core. Of course you can be J.R.R. Tolkien, and you can have a fantastic academic background and know every single thing about your scientific names of foliage, and have a rich literary history for every single person in the story. But I think you want to think about scope, and you want to think about, like, thematically in your story, like, what is the most important thing when somebody sits down to experience what you're creating? What do you want them to come away with? And so I think if you can look at it from that perspective, when you're doing your scope, when you're figuring out how big you want this experience to be, just that you have, and try to sort of key in everything towards that.
Yeah. I mean, you're totally right. I get myself stuck on scope a lot, because, I think, some people start small and they go big. I tend to think the opposite way. I start big and then, like, find myself completely, frustrated. It's like, oh my God, it's too big. I can't, or what I want to do is, I don't, the capabilities are not there yet type of situation. So
I mean, did you see the video that I posted about the Disney method?
Oh no, I think I missed that. I have to go through the feed more carefully.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shayna, if you could repost that link,
I'll include it when I post stuff.
Great, fantastic. Well, we're right at 8 o'clock, so I'm going to let you finish with your closing remarks, and then We promised that we would keep this session down to 1 hour, which we're accomplishing. So so they wouldn't be too strenuous for everybody else. And then we'll stop the live feed, and then we can just hang out and visit. You know, we'll just stop broadcasting in a minute.
So my recommendation, if you have a ton of ideas, just write them all down. Get it all out as much as possible, and then pare down from that, because it's great to have that much creativity. There's nothing wrong with that.
Nice.
And I will give y'all the resources that I've kind of talked about. I'll post some kind of document with links and videos and that sort of thing. And thank you all for your questions. And I've mentioned before, some time to talk to me, feel free to just shoot me a Facebook message. Totally available to do that. Whole interviews thing, it might be moving, but I really think this group is great, so I want to be available to you.
Well, we are very, very grateful for your expertise and your generosity. And thank you so much for agreeing to host this particular session in our development series. And with that said, I'm going to turn the the broadcasting. I'm going to stop the broadcast. But if people want to hang out and just chat for a few minutes, that's awesome. So we're signing off now. This is Jeris Miller and Cindy Buchanan for the Oculus Launchpad Hangout.